Steve Carell in the movie where he's building the Ark, Noah's Ark. That was the name of that movie.
Yeah.
And I think God sits down with the wife, and they're, I don't know, at a diner or something, and sort of the gist of it is that, like, when we pray for, let's say, bravery, God doesn't make us brave. He gives us opportunities to be brave, right? So I think that's how it works. So right now we're being given an opportunity for something. So what is the opportunity? And I think that's when we sort of look around and see what's happening. It's this longing for connection, for real connection, right? Because a lot of people are isolated. So it's an opportunity to connect really, like truly, like how are you feeling? This is something that's serious, right? It's an opportunity for us to see the impact that we have on Mother Nature, that, you know, we're gone for a couple of weeks and she's regenerating already, you know, like the dolphins are in Venice. Who would have thought, right? You look at the NASA, the maps of the air pollution, and within a month's time, it's clear. So it's all of this. It's to see, like, it doesn't matter that we go out and what we're buying and all of this. So it's an opportunity, I think, with our own sort of going within and figuring out what it is that we're noticing and what it is that's important. It's an opportunity to grow and become and expand into those things that we're being given the opportunity to do.
Mm-hmm.
Like to help the other, right? People are buying groceries for people. So it's an opportunity to go beyond yourself, outside yourself. And I think a lot of people have that calling, you know, what can I do? How can I help in general, right? But now it's like a heightened opportunity. Everything is heightened. So it becomes easier to do that, which we've been wanting, or sort of that longing, that calling has been back in the heads.
Right. And now it's at the forefront, which shows that at the core of our humanity is a desire to be part of a community, to serve others, and to recognize that what's most important is love and connection.
Yeah.
And what I'm seeing also is like what we used to, like sweating the small stuff, all the anxiety about paying bills. And yes, those things are important, but when you're hyper focused on only those things about the day-to-day life, and you lose sight of what's really valuable, our relationships with each other, our desire to help each other, to grow, to develop, to build, to create. You know, it's really refreshing to see that this is not just happening like within those spiritual communities, but now it's happening in our families, and it's happening, you know, in our schools. And it's, to me, I'm excited to see that people are lit up, right? It is like a great awakening right now. And
I think it's also an opportunity to see how things may work. You know, that, you know, I was thinking, my husband is working from home, and a lot of people are working from home. So what if those people who can do that once in a while, there's an immediate massive decrease in pollution, right? If we're taking a break from being out there in the world. So I think this is giving us opportunities to see how perhaps we can do things differently, that they actually work and function, as an opportunity to do what needs to be done. Really, it's not an option. And we've been kicked out of our comfort zone, right? So we haven't done it. We've been in our comfort zone, at least environmentally. Oh, we'll just keep doing what we've been doing and talk a little bit about putting a solar panel here or something. No, we've been thrust into the situation that is vital on the collective. It's the survival of the species, really.
Yeah. But also look at the stress levels. I mean, one of the biggest benefits I see is that working from home more, not commuting, especially for New Yorkers, has created this like opportunity to rejuvenate and not feel as much stress. I was really surprised as I'm doing sessions online with people that they're working from home and they have the stressors of the coronavirus and all of that and what's happening. And yet my sense is that all of my clients are actually less stressed out. They're in a much better place. They're better rested. They're seeing through this kind of this crazy dream of being robots on this, you know, machine that's just doing, going. And now all of a sudden they're taking a breather and reevaluating, still working and being productive and still connecting, but in a much better place, so much more relaxed, so much more connected to themselves, and there's more self-care, which was so desperately needed. It's like also a needed time to rejuvenate, like a
Yeah.
full vacation, you know,
Yeah.
mini vacation.
Yeah.
Another benefit, and another, like you said, how can we live as a society perhaps where we are not as stressed out? And like some of them are recognizing, like I work with students, like that pursuit and that kind of like, it's too much and the cost is too great. It's too great.
And I was saying, going back to really Italy being highlighted there, that Italians really know how to live. And when we tell them that, oh, in the States, you get 2 weeks vacation and 3 weeks if you've been there a long time, in general, they're like, that's crazy, because they have, 4 6 week standard. Fathers get X number of weeks off for childcare, as do mothers, and they sit and they, have their wine, and they have their lunches, and they have their, and then they work. But we have forgotten how to live, how to be, to enjoy the perks of being human.
Mm-hmm.
There are perks to being human. Let's laugh. Let's enjoy. I remember the first time I went to Italy, and everybody's like so close to me, and I was like, I said I'm an only child in this, in general. Like I didn't have a family really, so everyone wants to be close, and they, the male cousins are hand in hand walking down the street. You never see that here in the States, and it's like they look much happier, because there's that connection. And now we're being thrust into this opportunity for connection. As they say, like after all of this, people are going to want to hug, right? And bring those 6 feet of separation, which is, I think, really just symbolic for how we live. Make that it's become visible. It's like, okay, I'm here, see the commercials and the chairs 6 feet apart, and then when you're walking, so that social distancing is being highlighted. So again, that's being brought to the forefront. Do you really want to be distant from the other? Do you really want to be far away?
Mm-hmm. Like you're saying, that's like a metaphor for the emotional distancing that we actually have with each other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like, this is what it is, let's heighten this, so when you come out, is it still what you want to do? I think a lot of people are going to be like, no, let's be more Italian in a sense. Let's be closer. A lot of times we need that. We need you don't know what you have until it's gone. So we're being shown that, but it's not gone completely. It's like, okay, now when we get out of it, when we're on the other side of it, what are you choosing? There's an option now. I think we're being given options of a fuller expression of what it means to be human.
Living life more fully.
Yeah.
And it's certainly also teaching us about presence and living more in the now, as the news is changing every single day, and we're forced to live with this uncertainty that the only thing we can hold on to or anchor in is what's available to me in this moment. That's it. Like a powerful teacher of living in the moment.
Yeah. It's like, I'm here right now.
And now.
So I think it's really, there's a lot of pain, and it's, that process of transformation isn't without discomfort. I think whenever we think about any time in our life that we've had a real change, we've made a real shift, a real transformation, it's not that we woke up and it's like, oh, suddenly I'm new. No, there's that stress that, so I always think about, like, I had a friend who was breeding monarch butterflies. She would find the eggs, and so I was able to see all of these different stages. And right before the butterfly comes out, it's like a tearing. It's like the head rips, and it looks like it's this painful process. But then there she is, she's hanging. She needs to hang out for a couple of hours to dry her wings before she can fly. But the process of change comes with, because there's a death. With transformation, there's always a death. So if we come out of this other side fuller, more alive, we have to let go or let the other part of us die. And there's always sort of that, I think, inherent fear of death within the human perspective, even if the other side is a place where it'll bring us more joy, right, and more compassion. But I think there's, that.
And more freedom, right? Just like the difference between the caterpillar and the butterfly.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of times we want it to be a certain way, like in a fairy tale, like I'll spin around and voila, here I am. But there's always, and I think that the trial it's not a function of good or bad. That's our perception if it's good or bad. But there's always going to be a set of feeling uncomfortable, which really just means feeling something new. That creates that sort of cognitive dissonance that we want to fight against. But if we're able to say, this is what it is now, this is where I am now, this is what it looks like now, then we can sort of shed part of that friction, that internal resistance to the process. And then we could just observe what happens. And then we choose. Once we're out, do I want 6 feet of separation? Or do I want to call people more? Or do I want to hang out more? Do I want to sit closer to that other person? Because now I have that perspective of what it was not to be able to do that.
And also to recognize, like, our common humanity, like you were saying, this virus doesn't discriminate. We're all the same, we're all in it together, and that really helps bring that distancing or shrink the distancing, the perceived distancing of that person is too different than I am. Now we're all pretty much the same. We have similar fears, even if you talk to younger kids and younger adults versus older people, everyone has the same concerns, and we're facing this, I think, for a reason, to eliminate the differences and the separation that we've been living. So that's another gift.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting also that, what is affected really? It's the breath, right? So the virus is affecting the lungs, affecting our ability to take a breath. And really, people who pass, it's the lungs sort of become fibrotic and they become not able to function, which I think on one side is part of what's happening on the planet. If we look at the planet on the macro scale, that's part of what's happening. But also, and when we think about the individual, it's the breath of life, right? We can't live without it. There's no other, option. It's not like this virus is affecting a foot that there would be an amputation. There is no other way to live without breath. So this, I think, goes to the core of life.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a friend who most likely has it. Her test was inconclusive, and she said something to the effect, in closing an email, of to breathe in life, because it's a gift. It's a gift to be able to take a breath. And for her, that was heightened because she hasn't been able to do that.
Wow.
But just on a greater scale, it's a gift to be here. Cheers to life. Here we go.
What do you see as if you talk about the transformed humanity, like we're 6 months later or a year later, what do you see, or what messages are you getting from, obviously this is like an intervention and something that was necessary for this change on a bigger scale to occur. What do you see besides the things you already mentioned happening in our society or across the globe?
I think it's an opportunity, right? I can't say that I see anything. There was a poem that I channeled years ago called Dawn Delivered, and I was looking at it, and it was about our living alive, really, and it being a brand new day and a new dawn. And this is sort of that opportunity for us to fully embrace our capacity as human beings while thinking of the other, right? Where only life matters. As often, I was thinking, what if the government, instead of, if its number one focus is life, how it would run so much differently? If that's what mattered, not what's the stock market doing? Or what's this doing? What's that doing? If our perspective were that, it's like, how does the government function so that it supports people and it supports all people, right? Not, I think this is a call, this us against them, at least here in the United States, we've been seeing just politically is revolting, honestly, but it's not a function of only what's happening in the political system. I think it's just all of this is bringing to light what's happening in society in general. If that wasn't in society, it wouldn't be supported in the government. So again, it's all opportunity, but in the ideal, we'd be working with each other. There'd be this collective movement of countries working together to really fix the problem that's affecting life. And what is life? Us, all animals, all sentient beings, so to speak, right?
Well,
that's the ideal.
We are collaborating because it's a pandemic, a global pandemic. It's almost like an experiment in how do we collaborate with our scientists and researchers and learning from each other. So we are doing it already.
Yeah, because it's like do it or die. It's almost like, like do it if you feel like it. That never seems to work with us. We're a bit stubborn. It would be really nice if you work together. We've got global problems.
Motivation, yeah.
Yeah, but it's like of like lighting that fire within each and every one of us, and it's like, what can I do, Isabel? What can I do? And if everyone has that same perspective, then nothing is unchangeable, as opposed to, well, someone else will handle it or take care of it. And I think a lot of times people feel that they don't have that power, but we absolutely do have that power. And it takes a matter of us being a bit uncomfortable, perhaps, right? We went in New York, like stopped using the plastic shopping bags in the supermarkets.
Yeah.
And a lot of people was like, oh, what am I going to put my groceries in now? Hello? That small level of feeling uncomfortable compared to like the global possibility if everyone did it. Imagine if no one used a plastic bag. Wow.
Right. Then it becomes a new normal and we don't even question it.
Absolutely. There's so many, oh, we can't use straws anymore. How am I going to have my margaritas? How about you just sip?
Yeah,
right?
Much more.
So now we're like, for us, it's like, oh, but I have to go get my roots done or my nails did, right? Well, no, you can't. It's shut down because God, you can die, So it's like, oh,
everything's
okay.
relative. Our choices are relative.
Yeah, it's like, wake up, people. This is a great opportunity for awakening and collective engagement with life. Hopefully we shift a little. Hopefully
a little is all that it takes. A little shift is all that it takes.
If I shift a little and you shift a little and billions of people shift a little, and really it's not, I think like seeing how the air is clearing, go back to, the NASA satellite pictures over China, over Italy. It only took a couple of weeks. I think there's, I always talk about that activation. I go back to my nerdy chemistry teaching days, right? But there's an activation energy. When you hit that energy, then sort of everything takes over. That reaction occurs and things shift and things move. And I think really it takes, like, when we come together, that power becomes exponential, right? It's almost like, why are we being quarantined? Because if only one person goes out and spreads to 2 people, it's much less than, let's say 10. It doesn't seem like the difference between 1 and 10 is a lot, but the effect is.
Yeah.
The same thing. If we all are more conscious, why are people not recycling in their homes? And honestly, why are the governments then not recycling what they're saying they're going to recycle? A lot of this stuff just ends up in other countries in a big pile.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these issues, if we all work together, and I think that's the call. The call is work together. Notice that you can't do it on your own. right? You can't do just what you want to do because there are consequences. But if you work together, then you can make things happen.
Yeah.
It's a pivotal time in humanity, in the history of humanity. We'll see what we'll write.
Mm.